guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today I'm covering The Flight Attendant. This is episode 2 and I'm super excited to talk about it. You guys, I am loving this series. If you didn't see my first episode, watch that. If you haven't watched the series yet, go watch it and then come back and watch my recap because it's so good. I'm watching on HBO Max and yeah, it's fantastic. It's definitely keeping my attention, very fast paced. So let's get into this episode and talk about what happened. Hey guys, I just want to take a second and say if you're enjoying this show, please check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Real Housewives Recaps, or check the comments below and I'll put a link. And for $1 a week, you can support my show and get 4 bonus episodes per month. I'm covering Scary Island, like the greatest season of Real Housewives of New York. So check it out. Thanks so much. So we jump right back in where we left off on the first one. Do you remember that she's being interviewed by the detectives from the FBI, and she just had a memory of a woman being out with her and Alex that night that everything went down when they were just blackout drunk. She remembers a woman being there, and we find out her name's Miranda. And she's a business associate. And we find that out because, again, she's having flashbacks. Almost like the gaps in her memory are kind of filling in where she drank too much. So she's having flashbacks. So she's remembering this woman, Miranda. And she tells the FBI that she's tired. So that just kind of wraps up. And we don't really get very far there. She's not really letting on that she knows anything. So she walks back to join her coworkers. So remember, it's Megan, who's played by Rosie Perez, and Shane, and so they're talking, and they talk about how weird it was that the guy in 3C died. Of course, his name's Alex. And she says it's shocking, but people get murdered every day. They kind of freeze, like, what's up with Cassie? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm tired. She's still acting weird. I mean, she's been through this trauma. She's gotten off this long flight. She finally made it home. She's interviewed by the FBI. She does a great job acting in this. I love seeing it. So Megan says, I didn't tell the FBI what you told me about going out with Alex. And Cassie denies going out with him. But she did admit it on the plane, so that was kind of strange. Well, Megan told the FBI about them flirting and about him giving her his card. Well, Cassie gets pissed and says, what? That's not going to match up with the story I told them. And she says, we're going to Rome in a few days. Let's just put this all behind us. Let's forget about it. So she's back in New York. She passes out on her bed for a little bit. She's flashing back to the night. She's thinking about that woman being there. Again, it's not my photographs. It's just they intentionally keep this woman blurry. This whole show is so good. I love it. I love how fast-paced it is. She has a severe drinking problem, as seen in every scene of this show. But they make the scenery around her chaotic. They make it blurry. They do flashes like this and weird colors. And so that's why some of my pictures look like that. That's just how it's shot. But so she's in spin class and she's having flashbacks there, and she's thinking back to his room, and she's able to talk to Alex. She tells him, if you're going to be here, can you please be more helpful? And she really wants to find Miranda. And Alex says, I didn't know you had to track her down. Oh, okay. So the thing was, she was getting pissed at Alex. Like, why didn't you tell me more about her? And he said, well, I didn't know you'd have to track her down after my murder. And then he says, what did I tell you about her? And she says, you were business associates. So she looks at his business card. She decides she's going to go to his office to try to find this woman. So we see her waiting at the office here. This is Unisphere. There's this weird rabbit statue. Of course, the title of the episode is Rabbits. We don't find out what this means yet. It plays throughout the episode, this theme of rabbits. We even see cutaways to her being a kid potentially hunting rabbits. It's hard to tell. But, okay, so she's there. She says she's there to see Alex and asks if Miranda works there too. She pretends to be shocked when she finds out he's dead. Okay, so this lady at the desk, I believe her name was Sabrina, is very nice. Well, this lady comes out. She's with HR. She doesn't give her name. Not so nice. So there's something real weird going on here. HR asks, "What is your business with Unisphere?" Well, Cassie freaks out, and whenever she can't think of an answer, she can flash back to that night with Alex. So he's explaining that he works with hedge funds. She's able to talk about an account that he had, and the HR lady is like, "Oh, okay," and she excuses herself for a minute, and she goes to talk to two ominous-looking men. Well, so Cassie's in this office by herself, and she, it's completely glass. She can see that the HR lady is talking to this ominous men. So she gets freaked out and stands up and grabs her coat and just decides she needs to leave. So as she's leaving, the HR lady calls her over and over, but she's still able to run out and down these steps. So it's weird here because we're getting flashes as she's running to some scene with some rabbits. They don't explain it. It's very strange. She knocks over the rabbit statue in the lobby, and I just feel so bad for her. She knocks over the statue because she's so flustered. It's a piece of work by an artist. She's apologetic, and she's still trying to get out. HR comes around the corner with the two men, and she's just trying to get out of the building. So she takes off running. So here's where she's running down the steps, and with no explanation, we see it flash to this rabbit. And we see what appears to be her as a child running with blood all over her face and potentially hunting this rabbit. It's hard to tell. Okay, so she ends up outside and she gets a phone call, and it's the FBI calling her. They ask her to come in tomorrow at 10 a.m. And she's like, she's trying to keep it light, and he says, "Oh, and if you retain counsel, bring them in." So then she's completely panicked. That's it. She knows she's in big trouble. They've found her on the surveillance or something. Okay, so meanwhile, we get to see this mysterious woman who I assume is this Miranda they've been talking about. Cassie, okay, so this lady is telling this bartender about her friend Cassie losing a job, and she wants to refund her friend's card and charge hers instead as a nice gesture. She's very convincing. The guy ends up handing over the receipt. She takes a picture of it. Find out her name is Cassandra Bowden. I assume this is how she figures out where Cassie lives. So then we see Cassie with her friend Annie. She's telling her, finally opening up about everything that happened that night, waking up next to Alex, with his throat cut, all that stuff. And Annie says, "Why the F did you clean everything up?" And Cassie says, "I don't know. I was talking to you on the phone, freaking out." And they talk about Miranda, this mysterious woman. And Cassie explains she went to Alex's office that morning to try to find out about Miranda. Well, Annie, of course, freaks out even more and says, "You've got to stop doing things." She agrees to be Cassie's attorney. She's going to do it pro bono because they're best friends. And Annie said, "Listen, you have to go home. You have to get some sleep. And you have to be on time from the FBI tomorrow." So obviously we know that Cassie has a pretty severe drinking problem. We've seen where her brother alludes to it. Now her friend is alluding to it. Just go home, get some rest. Basically, don't drink, just go home. And so Cassie says she'll do that. It's all good. Yeah, not so much. Then we see her out at this bar. So Megan calls and says the FBI called her as well. And so Cassie's momentarily relieved, thinking, "Oh, okay, so they called you, they called me as well." Well, something weird was happening during this. Did you guys notice? So Megan is pulling money out of these figurines from around the house. And Megan says she's trying to be nice, and she's just basically saying, if you need anything, Cassie, I'm here for you. So Cassie's like, it's okay, let's just drop it, let's forget about it. She's trying to pretend like it's not happening. Well, she ends up going up to meet with Jada, the flight attendant that she sometimes gets into spats with, and she meets with Shane as well. And they decide, they start drinking there, and they end up going from there over to a club. Well, she's drinking like crazy. That's just what she does. She's obviously trying to numb herself from everything going on. She has this huge FBI meeting in the morning, but she still thinks it's a good idea to be out and to be drinking. So while she's out drinking, she goes to get more drinks for her friends. Apparently she owes Jada some money, so she goes to get her some drinks. And she meets this guy at the bar. His name's Buckley. He's an unemployed actor. And while she's talking to Buckley, her brother ends up calling. And she hangs up to call him back. And she has flashbacks to Alex while doing that. So her brother, again, her brother and his partner are in bed. And they hear that she's out at a club. And they know she's still having this severe drinking problem. So we're still seeing these flashbacks to Alex. She's trying to remember. She's trying to get the holes in her memory back. I still wonder if she wasn't slipped something, because it seems more than blackout drunk. But she's trying to just ignore everything. She's dancing with Buckley. Apparently they go back to his place. They have sexy time. So they fall asleep. Again, she's flashing back to Alex here. The difference where they were kind of close and talking, whereas Buckley she's just kind of hooked up with. So she wakes up in the morning to her alarm, and she sneaks out. She goes to meet with Annie. She's late. The one thing she was not supposed to do. And Annie says she smells like booze. And Annie is basically advising her, you cannot lie. You should take the fifth if you're not sure what to say. They come up with these codes, so that way she'll either fully tell the truth, or if she can't answer it, she'll take the fifth. So they agree upon the system. You can imagine how it goes, of course. At the same time, we get to see that the FBI is looking through camera footage, and they're mysteriously down during the time that Alex would have come and gone. I think they said it was down for 12 hours. So they don't have footage of her entering with him or leaving without him or anything like that. So what was his name? It was Van. It was such a weird name for the male FBI agent. He's filling in the detective Kim that he's bringing Cassie in today. So Cassie and her attorney come in. Of course, it's Annie. And the attorney is awesome. That actress is so good in the scene. She is very much there for Cassie. She's doing a fantastic job. They talk about, speaking to Alex and where he was staying, and they show her pictures of Alex. Cassie is freaking out. The attorney is trying to help. She's very curt with the FBI. And then Cassie starts to imagine that Alex is speaking in her ear. So that starts to mess with her head. She starts out doing her friend's system about when to speak up and tell the truth and when to plead the fifth. But at the end, it just all goes haywire. She ends up spilling. She ends up like verbal diarrhea and telling them what happened. But the way she says it is that she told them about dinner and about having sex with him, but that he was alive when she left. And then she starts to tell him about this woman, this Miranda woman. And that's how, and then it just the scene kind of ends. So we don't know how the heck she was able to walk out of there, but she was with her attorney. So Annie and Cassie walk out, and Annie says, I'm watching you make some really bad decisions. What were you thinking about telling them all that stuff? And Cassie says, I was thinking I hope he wasn't awake, to my Alex, and didn't feel anything when they cut him. And in the meantime, we see Miranda watching her in a car nearby. Well, Cassie ends up taking Annie to a bar. Where else? Because all she does is drink. We find out that Cassie left the room in the middle of the night. This part was very confusing. This is the first time we've been presented with this. Because remember in the first episode, she woke up, pulled back the curtains, and then discovered him. But now she's saying she left the room in the middle of the night. But then she came back. She was so drunk, she climbed in bed with a dead guy, and she doesn't remember. The lawyer tries to make her feel better, and the attorney says she was trying to get her to plead the fifth when all of a sudden Cassie spilled everything. She tells Cassie to go back, to go home, to take her flight to Rome, and there's nothing more she can do here. Let the attorney worry about it. You stop helping. Okay, so then we go over to the FBI agents, and we actually get to see them working together. So it's Kim. She tells Van, I'm very disappointed with your aggressive attitude in the interview room. And I'm also pissed because she was mad because he showed the crime scene photos to her. And he's a complete D-head and says, he just really is condescending to her and says, we're in the same position and it's taken me half the time to do it. And she has the best line here. She says, well, you're male, pale, and Yale, so you're perfect for the FBI. And she kind of puts him in his place. I thought that was a fantastic scene. He thinks they should have arrested her, and Kim is much more logical about it and says, no, the attorney could have gotten her statement thrown out, and we need to wait and see, figure out what to do. Meanwhile, Cassie's packing, and this is interesting because this is the first time that we see that she's hyper organized when it comes to packing up her life. Every other aspect in her life is messy, but organized as hell when she's packing. P.S. Did you notice the ceramic bunny behind her when she was packing? I thought that was interesting. It's all about rabbits this episode. I still don't know why. So she picks up his book, Alex's book, so she is able to flash back to Alex. So this is one of those moments where she feels like she's hallucinating talking to him. He brings up the rabbits thing when she was flashing. Okay, so remember I told you when she was running down the stairs she was seeing rabbits? He brings that up. She's shocked that he's able to see into her mind like that. She remembers that the receptionist, Sabrina, made a face when Miranda was mentioned. So it's like, oh, hey, I need to find her and ask her what she knows about Miranda. So we see Cassie leave. Right after that, we see this Miranda woman sneaking around her hallway. She pulls out a knife and she breaks into Cassie's apartment. So she kind of goes through her stuff. We see her she touches everything with a knife. It's kind of strange. She finds Cassie's passports, which if she's going to Rome, wouldn't she need those? I guess they're expired. I'm not real sure. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but she's going through it, and we don't really know what she's looking for because the scene just kind of ends there. Meanwhile, Cassie is, outside of the building waiting to see if that receptionist comes down, and her brother calls. He thinks that this trip is a bad idea. Remember, he and his children are coming out to see Cassie, and she asks what the problem is, and he says, it seems like your lifestyle might be a little too intense for us. And of course, he's got a family, he's got young children, he's got his partner, and she's just wild. She's drunk and wild. So she says, you're being nice, but you aren't being clear. And he says, how many drinks have you had today? And she says, oh, well, that's clear. And he just doesn't know if he can trust her around his girls. Okay, so meanwhile, this woman comes out of the building, and Cassie follows her into this bar. And at first, Sabrina is like, I can't talk about work. And Cassie says, no. I understand. It's about breaking that rabbit statue. So it kind of calms Sabrina down. She sits with Cassie. They end up having some drinks. They cheers to Alex. Meanwhile, we see her friend Megan calling Cassie, and I don't know. I don't know what that was about. But what's weird is she's in her car and she meets with this kid. It was intentionally vague in the back of this office. And they talk about flash drives. He says none of these flash drives are in the inventory. So she gives him money, the money that she was fishing out of the ceramics earlier, and some drugs. I have no idea what's going on there, but I can't wait to find out. What is this about? Is she trying to do things to help Cassie? Is she being shady? Is she involved? I don't understand. I assume she's trying to help Cassie. Meanwhile, Cassie and Sabrina are still hanging out and drinking. Cassie brings up breaking that rabbit. She seems to be intentionally getting Sabrina drunk because Sabrina's relaxing. Cassie kind of brings up Miranda. Sabrina says, ugh. Miranda Croft. Ugh, she's the worst. Then she goes to say, I can't believe Alex was dating her. Sabrina says that she picks up on things and that she's smart and she eavesdrops on a lot of calls. I just wonder if she got this wrong. I don't know. Maybe I am wrong, but I do feel like Alex said they went out for a little bit, but they weren't a thing when he and Cassie got together. But, let's see. Oh, and then Sabrina says that Miranda would call up screaming volatile things, and she calls her more of a stalker than anything else. And he says it sounds like Miranda's not going to be very helpful, because the whole thing was Cassie wanted to find Miranda thinking, well, she could find out more about what happened that night and who was involved and what they got up to. But it sounds like Miranda was involved. So they're trying to think it out, and Cassie says, it sounds like she killed you. And so we're not real sure what's going on there. Possibly this Miranda girl did kill him. I think that's maybe too easy. I think there's more to the story. I don't know, but I can't wait to find out. And then the very last scene of the episode, we see Miranda out on the street. She's walking down the street behind a very clueless Cassie. I assume Cassie's going to make her flight, and she's going to be pulling luggage, and Miranda is following closely behind. And we see that Miranda has a knife in her hand. So we will see what the heck happens there on the next episode. Such a good show. So well written, so fast paced. There are no slow spots. It's just action sequence after action sequence. I'm very curious to know what the rabbits have to do with anything. I'm curious about the kid with the blood on her face. I'm curious, is this actually Miranda? I don't know if they're trying to trick us and think this is Miranda. I assume it is, but I don't know. I just need to know more information. I can't wait to watch the next episode. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Leave me comments below. I love the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic week. Take care. Bye-bye.